Hey everyone, today we're going to discuss about comparing the sample mean and population mean when the sample size is small. In our previous lesson, we've learned already how to compare the sample mean and population mean. But on that case, ang napag-aralan natin is kapag malaki yung sample size. Specifically, if n is greater than or equal to 30. Ngayon, anong gagawin naman natin kung yung sample size natin is small? So we're referring here to a sample size that is less than 30. Kapag ganun naman kasi ang case natin, we make use of a different test. Yung sa last lesson natin, gumawa natin ng z-test. This time, we're going to use what's called a t-test of one sample mean. It is used to compare for any statistically significant difference between the sample mean and the population mean if the population is less than 30. Sorry, this should be the sample. The sample is less than 30 and the population standard deviation is not known. So this time naman, hindi alam yung population standard deviation, ang ginagamit natin ay sample standard deviation. Now, the test value of a t-test of one sample mean can be determined by the following formula, by this formula. T is equal to the sample mean minus the population mean times the square root of n, sample size, divided by the sample standard deviation. So, ayan. If you can observe, similar lang din halos yung formula. Ang nabago lang din yun sa denominator kasi yun sa nakaraang lesson natin, last lesson natin, it's a population standard deviation. But this time, it is a sample standard deviation. Now, how do we determine the critical values of t? So, we're not going to use the z-tables na. We're going to use the t-table. So, we are going to use the t distribution at the specific level of significance, type of test, and degrees of freedom. So we make use of the table found on the back of your book on Appendix B. So yun. I took the liberty to type the values as well. So dito sila lahat. Yan. So please check yung Appendix B ng book nyo. Nandun yung values na ito. Same lang yan. Now the column 0.90, we're going to adjust this. Kasi wala namang 90, 90, 95, 99 dito eh. So 0.90, yun yung gagamitin natin kapag one-tailed test with 0.05 level of significance. Yung column na 0.95, we're going to use that for, split ko nga para mas makita natin. Ayan. Again, 0.90 gagamitin kapag 0.05 level of significance. Yung 0.95 na column, we use that for two-tailed test, 0.05 level of significance. And yung 99, 0.99, two-tailed test, 0.01 level of significance. You might wonder, nasaan yung column for one-tailed na 0.01 level of significance? If you search the internet, mas malaki pa yung t-table dyan eh. Meron silang table, meron talagang column for one-tailed test na 0.01 level of significance. Pero hindi siya na-provide sa book natin, so we're gonna restrict the given that we're going to have into this tree. Kasi yun lang yung reference natin. Pero if you search on the internet or the t-table, mahaba pa yan. Okay? At hindi lang siya hanggang 30. It extends hanggang hundreds of values for n, for the degrees of freedom pa. Okay? So, ayun. So, let's have an example. So, in our example here, a new vitamin, wait lang. So, a new vitamin claims that it will help children gain height by more than 12 inches. 26-year-old children were given this vitamin and it was observed that after a few months, they grew on an average of 5.2 inches and their standard deviation is 1.5 inches. Test the hypothesis at 0.01 level of significance. So let's begin with the first step here. So step 1, we state the null and alternative hypothesis. So ano ba yung parameter natin dito? Yung parameter natin yung height ng children. And yung hypothesis value natin, they will gain height by more than 12 inches. So, null hypothesis, parameter equal kay hypothesis value. The height, they will gain 12 inches. Mean equals 12. And alternative natin, new vitamin will help children gain more than 12 inches of height. Mean is greater than 12. And bakit more than? Kasi yun yung nandun sa claim natin. So, next step, identify the appropriate test to be used, the type of test, and the critical value at the specified level of significance. So in this problem, ang sample size natin is 20. So, we will use the t-test of one sample mean. Bakit? Kasi less than 30. Pag less than 30, t-test tayo. Kapag greater than 30, or exactly 30, z-test tayo. Now, the alternative hypothesis uses the phrase more than. Ito, more than yan. Kapag more than yan, greater than, or less than yan, we use a one-tailed test. Again, pwede naman pag two-tailed kapag not equal. Okay? The level of significance is alpha is 0.05. So we will use the t-table to determine the critical value. Ngayon, dalawang kailangan natin kapag gagamit tayo ng t-table. Merong level of significance, ay tatlo pala, sorry. Level of significance, yung test kung one-tail or two-tail siya, and kailangan din pala natin ng degrees of freedom. N equals 20. So degrees of freedom is obtained by having df equals n minus 1. So that's 20 minus 1, 19. Check natin yung degrees of freedom. 19. Ano yung corresponding confidence coefficient niya? I-check natin. One-tailed siya na 0.05. So, saan tayo titingin na column? Ay 0.90. Basta ito ay one-tailed 0.05. So, degrees of freedom 19. Sino ang corresponding value niya? 1.729. That's the critical value. And we will use the positive value since the symbol in the alternative hypothesis is greater than. Dito yun, no? Greater than. Step 3. Let's determine the test value using the formula. So we will use the formula T equals sample mean minus population mean. That's rather quantity sample mean minus population mean times the square root of the sample size divided by the sample standard deviation to solve for the t-test statistic. So, balikan natin yung problem natin. So, ito yung problem. Check natin, ano yung sample mean? It's 5.2 inches kasi ito yung 26-year-old, ang naginan nilang height is 5.2. Population mean, yung hypothesized population mean natin is 12 inches. Sample standard deviation, 1.5 inches. Sample size, 20 na 6-year-old children. Substitute natin yung values. Tagayin mo natin ito. Substitute the values, sample mean, 5.2. Population mean, 12. Sample size, 20. Sample standard deviation, 1.5. Let's compute this value on our calculator. We will end up with negative 20.27. So that is our test statistic. So let's decide. Are we going to reject the null hypothesis or not? So kuha tayong normal curve. Let's plot the test statistic. It's right here, negative 20.27. And where is our critical value? Ano bang critical value natin? 1.729 and it is positive. So, plot natin, positive, 1.729. And the rejection region, since greater than siya, going to the right. Kung nalilito kayo kung saan mag-shade, tingnan yung symbol ng alternative hypothesis. Naka-point out siya kung saan may shade. So, naka-point out siya sa right, so i-shade mo sa right. So, the test statistic, negative 20.27, it does not lie in the rejection region. Nandito siya eh. Ang rejection region nasa kabila. Thus, we failed to reject the null hypothesis. So, step 5, make a conclusion. So, pag ganun, balik tayo kay hypothesis natin. So, split ko yung document dito. So, ano yung null hypothesis? So, we failed to reject the null hypothesis. So, yun pa rin gagamitin natin, yung null hypothesis. So, the new vitamin will help children gain 12 inches of height. So, ano ba yung claim ng company? Ang claim ng company or na-claim ng vitamin na gumawa ng vitamin na yun ay yung height na mag-gain nila is more than 12 inches. So, the claim is incorrect kasi hindi naman sila nag-gain ng 12 inches. The claim that the new vitamin will help children gain height by more than 12 inches is incorrect kasi hindi naman yun yung na-observe sa sample. Okay? So, that's it. So, ganun natin ino-observe yung claim. Iba naman yung claim din kasi ng hypothesis. Okay? So, there are other examples here. I suggest you take a look at them, study on your own pace. Okay? Mag-aralan ng maigi. And try to answer it on your own and see if you can arrive on the same answer. Practice lang, ha? So, ang main point natin, if n is less than 30, we can compare the sample mean to its population mean using the t-test of one sample mean. With a dash right here. It is done to verify the hypothesis value, blah, blah, blah. So, yun. Ganun pa rin naman, basta na maging maliit lang yung sample size, gagamit na tayo ng t-distribution. But if the sample size is 30 and above, we use the z-distribution. So, I hope you guys learned a lot today. Thank you guys for watching. And on our next lesson pala, by the way, we're going to compare naman sample proportion and population proportion. So, see you guys on the next video.